¿Qué tal, amigos del Congreso Internacional de Yoga? That is the best of my Spanish, so now I'm going to speak in English, although my native tongue is French. My name is François Lorin. I am a teacher trainer in the Institut Français de Yoga in France. I have been a long-term student of TKV Deshikachar, son of T. Krishnamacharya. I used to go from 1966 to almost 1987 every year to Madras, now called Chennai, to study the techniques of yoga and the Yoga Sutra of Patanjali and the Bhagavad Gita with my teacher. Now I've become vice president of the EUY, European Yoga Union, where about 20 federations from all over Europe are gathered to try to preserve the spirit of yoga, not only the techniques, but the spirit. And yoga is not a philosophy, it's not the love of wisdom. It's more the love of truth or the love of oneself. By this way of saying things, one should not consider that this is an egocentrical kind of attitude, because oneself is not what we imagine it to be. So, my friends, or rather friends of yoga, or lovers of yoga, or students of yoga, or disciples of yoga, I want to speak about the spirit of yoga. Now, friends usually have an unquestioned welcoming of somebody, their friend, whether they like everything or not of the personality, the circumstances of the friend. Friendliness is to accept the other as he or she is. I don't think yoga asks us to accept it unconditionally. It asks us to find out, to experiment, to see if yoga is up to or worth of friendliness. Lover. When you love, at least human love, which is the one we know, we create a bond. And I don't think yoga asks us to create more bonds. It asks us to release oneself from every bond, even the dearest ones, which is most probably the most difficult thing to do. Students means to be or to want to be educated in a field, a language, mathematics, history, yoga. That creates pandits, that creates people who have a lot of knowledge. But you can be full of knowledge about yoga and have no real inkling of what yoga is. So I would personally select the word disciple, provided we understand the etymological meaning of disciple, one who is ready and prepared to learn. Learning is different from acquiring knowledge. To acquire knowledge is a work of memory. Learning is an everlasting inquiry to find out the truth of anything. And the truth is not something static. It changes. It changes like everything else in this world. The parinama of yoga. So it requires a supple, agile mind, ready to change its point of view. And disciple does not mean to follow somebody or to follow a teaching. that is something else. It has become so in India very much. But it does not lead to freedom. You cannot reach freedom, which is the aim of yoga, through more bondage. Even if you believe that the person you are born to is an awakened human being, the opinion comes from yourself, and being limited in your understanding, otherwise you would be the guru, it is caught in so many misconceptions, projections from your past, from your childhood, from the relationships you had to your parents, that most probably it is not going to help you. So I keep the word disciple, but in the strict meaning of readiness to learn, readiness to observe, readiness to experiment. In a way, yoga is like science. It needs experiments. But it does not need hypothesis or theory beforehand to find out which experiment we have to conduct. Because the experiment is ourselves. We are both the experienced, the experience, and the experiencer. We are both the seen, the seeing, and the seer. The scene is easy, the world is vast, the experiences we went through are so numerous. Slowly, maybe with age, if we are in the process of learning, we have come to see many things about ourselves and about the world and about others. The process of seeing is close to us. We can watch our thoughts, our feelings, our bodily sensations, whether we believe we have one body only or several bodies, like in the Taittiriya Upanishad. I like this model of 5 bodies. The Anandamaya Kosha, the body of food, the physical dense body. Pranamaya Kosha, the body made of energy or breath, subtle, circulating. One with the universal energy that is also called prana. The body made of thoughts, mano, maya, kosha, the one we are so familiar with that it's very difficult not to believe that is our identity. Vijnana maya kosha, the body made out of insight, intelligence, which in the Yoga Sutra or in the Sankhya text is called buddhi, out of which comes viveka, the capacity to know whom we are in truth. This fourth body, Vijnana Maya Kosha, the body of intelligence, is the one from which many diseases come from, because we have lost the understanding of ourselves, of others, and of the world. When I say we, I mean the human species. And then, deepest of the 5 bodies, but it's only a body and therefore an outer sheet or outer self, is the emotional body, Anandamaya Kosha. Of course, Ananda is a very special form of emotion, the highest according to the yoga masters. And it will be the emotion that lies beneath all others. But the other emotions are included in this body. And of course, even more than Vijnana Maya Kosha, this body is the root cause of many of our problems and diseases. So to treat human race and to treat ourselves out of disease, we have foremost to look into these two bodies, not so much in the physical or energetical body, although today the mode of yoga is more towards these two bodies than the one I just mentioned, unfortunately. There are some exceptions. Like I went 2 summers ago or 3 summers ago in Japan to meet a group of yoga therapists. And Dr. Kimura, who has been a long-term student of a Swami who lived in the Himalayas, and who was himself a student of Rama Mohan Brahmachari, the teacher of T. Krishnamacharya, is advocating in Japan an approach of health problems starting from the observation of the emotional and intelligence bodies. And I was very impressed by the different lectures, case taking that were presented by the Japanese Yoga Therapy Association. But to come back to the topic, I really feel that we have to understand foremost that these 5 bodies are only external aspects of ourselves. And to love oneself is not to love exclusively any of these 5 bodies. We could compare them to tools. And if you are a driver, for instance, if you want your, sorry for the call, if you want to have a car in working condition, it is important that you take it regularly for the garage, for the mechanics, and to put oil, not only petrol, to verify that the brakes are functioning, the steering wheel too, and so on. So the 5 bodies, we have to take care of them, and yoga is wonderful for that. But it's not enough. We have to discover who is the driver, oneself. And if love is to exist, it has to exist for that one self. If you watch yourself now, and you ask yourself the question, who is listening to this talk in English, even if you are maybe of another native tongue, language? Who is hearing the words? Of course, you need ears to hear, eyes to see, and so on. But the feeling of hearing, of seeing, is not in the ear or in the eye. It is deeper. If you are of a materialistic upbringing, you will say it is the brain. Brain is the organ through which we hear, we see, and so on. Truly, it is a very important part of the machinery. But the feeling you can have when you attentively look to whom is listening to these words or watching this face on the screen is not something that you can honestly say is a brain. The answer would be, it is myself. So, you have to watch and ask yourself, what is this myself? And the first answer that the mind gives is, well, I am François Lorin, I was born in 1941, I have been a student of Deshikacha, I have 2 children, I have divorced and then remarried, another wife, a new wife, Jocelyn, and so on and so on. I live in the countryside, in a nice house. I teach yoga, and I have still a lot of passion about teaching yoga, and so on and so on. But if you watch carefully, all this is only a flow of thinking, of thoughts, of memories, of labels, something that is very true, but at the same time, what is listening to the thoughts? What is watching the memories when they come out or they come in form of images in the brain? Because you don't see them in front of you, you see them within you. What is watching the emotional feelings that rises from these memories of the past? And then your inner eye must turn 180 degrees to look more within, and there it finds no form, no identity, no support, no history, no time, a form of emptiness which is not a void, but which is like a screen on which all forms happen. All experiences happen. The experience of hearing, the experience of seeing, the experience of tasting, of touching, of smelling, and so on, of thinking, of feeling. The innermost core for being has no shape, is free of time, free of belief, free of identification, even to yoga, which is maybe one of the worst identification. Worst because it gives us a sense of accomplishment, of understanding. It does not lead us to the vacuity or emptiness, open space in which all experiences happen, and this open space, welcoming to all experience, whether good or bad, is actually one self. I am not the one pointing this out to you. When Patanjali said, then the seer is at its right place, in its right form. Tada drashtu swarupe avastanam, the third sutra of the first chapter. It speaks about this. But first, yoga chitta vritti nirodha, the second sutra of the first chapter, says there must be a stoppage of the constant identification of the movements of the mind. I don't know if you have observed how a thought creates an emotion, a feeling. How a feeling acts on the body and creates new thoughts that create new feelings, and so on and so on. Who is watching all this? If you take the Bhagavad Gita, the same proposal is made by Krishna to Arjuna. You cannot kill, you cannot be killed, because the old one, the ancient one, the one that is really yourself, was never born and will never die. Of course, the 5 bodies will disappear. All your bodily sensations, all your energetic sensation and breathing, all your thoughts, all your understanding and all your emotions, even the dearest one, will disappear. Nothing will be left, not even a trace. Maybe a few years if you are a great artist or a great scientist or a great writer or a great yogi, maybe. But it will disappear like everything else in this world, including our earth. So we have to keep this in mind, not constantly, otherwise we become mad, but not try to plunge ourselves in activities, whether it be the activity of yoga or any other, and forget this fact. Everything will disappear. This world, ourselves, as bodies. The question is how to experiment and come to a real conviction, true experience, that something in us is beyond time, beyond space, beyond form, and therefore absolutely, completely free. It is a lifelong quest, but we make it longer maybe than we should. If we believe that we have things to do in terms of change, if we feel that this body is not all right, we have to do something about it. If we feel our breathing is not all right, we have to do something about it. Our mind is not all right, we have to do something about it. Our understanding is not quite all right, we have to do something about it. Our emotional reactions are not all right, we have to do something about it. We are on a path that is endless. It doesn't mean that we cannot do it, but we must understand that freedom does not lie in the change of forms, of bodies. Freedom lies in the immediate realization of our real true nature, of oneself. This requires no time. This requires a form, a motivation rather than a form, a motivation that is constant, that is renewed. It can be renewed through reading books and meeting people who have the same desire to find out whom one is really. But it has to be find out mostly through an endless observation of what is happening now, because only what exists now as reality, to observe one's actions, one's thoughts, one's feelings, and to observe what is observing all that. That means self-observation. And this can be done only in action. And this action has to be selfless in the sense egoless. That's why Patanjali suggests that if there is something that can be done to come closer to one's freedom and to one's understanding of one's self, oneself as one actually is. He suggests Kriya Yoga, the purificatory aspect of yoga is founded upon tapas, which means an act. Action is our field of experimentation, or, I mean, yogis, students of yoga or disciples of yoga. We cannot just sit down and wait. We have to act. But action is the support of our observation, svadhyaya. To know oneself, we have to be watchful in all types of action, and I include sleep, dreams, like Patanjali does in the first chapter too. They can be supports of understanding. So action brings, through observation, through awareness of the nature, the motivations, and the results of action, to a deeper understanding of oneself on the level of the physical body, of the energetical body, of the mental body, of the body of intelligence, and the emotional body. And most important, not only tapas, not only swadhyaya, but also Ishvara pranidhana, to surrender to that which has the power. If I feel that I, François, has the power, am I not mistaken? Did I decide to come as a man in this life? Did I decide to be born in France? To have French as a native language? While my mother came from Hungary and my father came from a long, long journey, I mean through the ancestors, from I don't know where actually, but through Spain, through Turkey, through Russia, until they arrived in France. What can I say I choose? Am I choosing now the thoughts that come and express themselves as words that you listen to in English? You may say, yes, I have chosen to listen to this talk to the end. Well, first, a complicated network of causes have made you choose to follow this International Congress of Yoga, the yoga. But this is something that comes out of many circumstances. And if you have decided to stay on and listen to the end, which is coming close of this talk, it is because something has either surprised you, irritated you, or pleased you. So the freedom of choice has to be looked very closely. There is an inner sense of freedom which is true, because what we are is so open, so able to accept everything, that this is true freedom. But we have to be aware that this freedom is not the one of the ego. As a limited person, my freedom is almost zero. I am conditioned. All the bodies are conditioned. by the past. You cannot free yourself from the past through trying to change now so that you will be different in the future. The history of the five bodies is written in a way because of what has happened and what is happening. But that which listen to these words, that which watch this face on the screen, that which in a way is the awareness of everything that happens in your life, this is free. Free from time, free from space, free from history. And I hope, I wish for you that sooner or later you will discover the taste of yourself. Thank you for having listened to me to the end. And bye-bye.